According to the faculty handbook, professors should strive to demonstrate Christian commitment as well as skill in teaching. They should pursue excellence in their work through professional activities and faculty development, and they should also show concern for those under their care and instruction. When it comes to those under my care and instruction, I'm thankful the handbook says show concern and not feel concern. This would be like asking Atlas, while he's holding up the world, to feel concern for all the little human jerks weighing it down, making his job worse every day, week by week, semester after semester. Yes, Atlas's time is divided into semesters. This is a standard unit of time measurement on the galactic punishment calendar. I'm good at showing concern, at hiding my inner rage and disgust. Think of it this way. My skin smells like soap. My clothes smell like Tide. My insides smell like low tide. But you'd never know it. This hidden inner stink isn't rare at Geneva College. In fact, the faculty handbook mentions it, and I quote, Geneva College is committed consciously and wholeheartedly to offering Christian higher education designed for the whole life of the whole person. Consequently, faculty should strive to show concern on the outside, even if you feel rage and disgust on the inside. And you will. Just wait till you meet Geneva students. Professors face many trials, but one of the worst is writing letters of recommendation. I always say yes, though I'm always uncomfortable, because the whole time I'm disobeying my mother, who always said, always tell the truth. For example, you're hard to love. Thanks, Mom. I'm tired of disobeying my mother. From now on, I'm only writing honest recommendation letters. I'm going to say it all, holding nothing back. If a student armed with my letter gets hired by a company or accepted by a graduate school, it will be a miracle. The other day, Kevin Cochrane asked me to write him a letter of recommendation. To the review committee at Integrated Resources Incorporated. Kevin sucks. I am not pleased to write a recommendation for Kevin Cochrane because I highly object to him as a human. He will rot your organization from the inside out. He wants to be a public relations assistant and digital marketing strategic communications coordinator. Yeah, maybe if he wasn't a sociopath who tortured dolls as a child. Sure, maybe. I have known Kevin for the past several, whatever, it feels like forever. I don't know if you're a Christian company. I didn't look into it. But I'm going to reference the Bible now. The Apostle Paul talked about this mysterious hell he had to deal with. He called it a thorn in the flesh. People don't know what he was referring to. They call it all kinds of things: pride, anger, sickness, hatred. Reformed Presbyterians suggest that it's happiness. But I know exactly what it was. Paul had a Kevin in his congregation. Paul's big mistake was reviving Kevin after Kevin fell out the window that one time. In every class of mine containing Kevin, I assigned seats and sat him by open windows, then tried to teach very boring lessons. No luck, obviously. Here we are. I've come to the part in the recommendation letter where I'm supposed to give one or two specific examples of Kevin's good performance in intellectual activities, and I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to say an embarrassing thing about him. Kevin had a lot of nicknames as a boy. He was called Kevbo, Buddy Boo, Kevin Meister, Kevy, and Kevin from Heaven. This last one he made up himself. He's still making up names for himself, and he will demand that you use these names around the office. Names like Kevin the Weapon, Threat Level Kevin, and Kevin of Troy. Having learned nothing at Geneva College, Kevin is not well equipped to grow. His impatience, volatility, and complete lack of a conscience prepare him terribly for Integrated Resources Incorporated, but prepare him very well for a life of incarceration. Sincerely, none of your business. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the notorious Kevin from Heaven.
I cannot wait to have that letter in writing. Oh my goodness. If I'm not on a Geneva watch list by now, I don't know if that doesn't do it, that should do it. But so Dr. Williams, this might be out of Stockholm Syndrome for all the semesters you've tormented me, but I think you're an exceptional man, and you made transferring to Geneva worth it. So, but before you get too big of a head, your artwork, that probably has gotten you on a watch list as well. So this story, it doesn't have a title, but I wrote it for Dr. Morton's advanced composition class. So here it goes. Face down and unconscious, I laid on an operating table, veins wheezing with anesthesia. The aggravating reality of chronic pain is that you'll eventually find yourself on the sharp end of a surgeon's scalpel. It's back pain that ambles throughout your body, chewing bones and stabbing nerves like blunt force trauma paid by the hour. I walked into Jefferson Hospital with a back that, for the better part of 4 years, had felt like a decaying wooden beam chopped by a jagged hatchet. The familiar burn plunged through the soles of my feet, slashing from heel to toe, nestling deep like wraparound barbed wire. But hopefully, after a few hours of having this back gutted like a fish, my body would return to normal business operations. I first heard the word spondylolisthesis on February 7th, 2014. An orthopedic doctor said it to me after an x-ray of my lower spinal column. And when medical professionals start spouting terms with 6 syllables like spondylolisthesis, you rapidly make yourself aware that the treatment plan won't include 2 ibuprofen, some couch time, and a dorky Instagram motivational line like pain is weakness leaving the body. So, unbeknownst to me, my L5 vertebra, the lowest one on the spine, had experienced an undetected fracture and slipped forward like a displaced Jenga block, permanently grinding into nerves that ran through the vertebrae and into my feet. No traumatic incident occurred in recent history that could explain this diagnosis. No car crashes, no free jumping off of bridges in my spare time, no underground MMA fights on the side. You know, none of the things would actually crack a vertebrae. So I only became aware of my back's disintegration when the soles of my feet began to go numb, then burn after high school cross-country races in the fall of 2013. Swim season that year was even worse. With each stroke and kick, the lower back pain ripped through my frame like a box cutter. I didn't happen to make it to outdoor track season that year. So my last 2 years of high school, I found myself in after-school appointments full of check-ins and paperwork and second opinions on how to preserve my fragmented back. Gone went the plan to enlist in the Navy. Gone went participating in sports like cross-country, swimming, and track. And once the paperwork gets thicker and you start requiring labeled folders for storage, that's when you know things haven't quite gone according to plan. At physical therapy, you have to keep filling out these questionnaires that ask this wonderful question. On a scale from 1 to 10, what does your pain feel like? What I should have written in all caps were damaged goods, please fix. The x-rays, the MRIs, the CT scans, the pain-killing injections with long needles and no results, nothing really worked. So I knew I was going to need surgery following another visit to a chiropractor's office, where I underwent something wonderful called traction therapy. I laid on a table, and an attendant situated a harness around my waist and chest. Then she clipped in a winch into the harness, which connected to a pulley system. So for about 10 minutes, the electric pulley slowly stretched the lower half of my body. Now, the object of traction therapy is to relieve pressure and decompress the spine. You're probably skeptical about the success rate of this upon hearing the prior description of this treatment, and I was too. But when Dad's insurance plan covers things at 100% with no copay, you speak into existence what every greedy gambler whispers when clutching the handle of a slot machine. Never say never. So, of course, I soon calculated that 10 minutes of traction therapy was just the amount of optimal time that I should have spent fervently and repeatedly banging my head against the wall for being dumb enough to try this remedy. I can remember looking up the ceiling, then at the harness, then at this ridiculous contraption playing tug of war with me, and swallowing hard, recognizing what an expended last resort looked like. I gingerly walked bow-legged out of the office, duly ashamed of my gullibility. There were too many hours after school days when I'd sit on the floor at the edge of my bed, staring out the window, wondering when my back would stop feeling like it had been wrenched with the maximum amount of torque. There were too many nights in bed, gripping the sheets as the burning sensations withered my feet. None of it seemed to leave. 1 year became 2, and 2 led to 3. The passing of days pressed like dark corners around the situation. So at 20 years old, and a little over 2 weeks after the end of my sophomore year of college, I headed in for something called spinal fusion surgery on May 23rd, 2017. So after 5 hours of slicing and grafting and patching, my surgeon, Dr. Chamberlain, pronounced the salvage job seaworthy. I woke up with my L4 and L5 vertebrae fused together with 2 rods, 3 screws, and fresh bone grafts plastering it all together. The only evidence that my back had been spread open like 2 open book pages was a 5-inch incision mark threaded down the middle of my back, and a diagonal incision off to the left, where Dr. Chamberlain had taken bone grafts from the upper portion of my pelvis. Not long after I emerged from the happy hunting grounds of anesthesia and got settled in my hospital room, a younger male attendant in scrubs walked in with measuring tape. He began taking the dimensions of my waist so I could be fitted with a back brace, which I'd have to wear for 3 months. The post-op recovery would be 3 months of no bending or twisting at the waist and 6 months of no lifting anything over 10 pounds, so the bone grafts could completely form. When the attendant finished, he turned around and lifted the back of his shirt slightly, which had me obviously panic and think, why is my healthcare professional lifting his shirt up? Then my eyes lashed onto a long scar slithering down the back of his back. He quickly turned around and asked me how old I was, then said, I played football and wrestled, but I had to get a similar surgery when I was around your age. Keep your head up, man. You'll get through this. He walked out before I could say thank you. During the 4 days I spent recovering in Jefferson Hospital, I had some grade A pain-killing drugs, either mainlined through my veins or delivered in pill form. But the attendant's words, that was more than a remarkable dose. I mean, what are the odds that we would have the same scar? A few minutes later, I felt like a car bomb had detonated inside my backbones, erupting until there was nothing left but a rusted hulk slowly skidding down a hill. Remember, this was a salvage job, and hardware like rods and screws are more optimal for home improvement, not in your back. I was soon duly noting that. But soon after, I met Jabari, who strolled into my room with the easy confidence of a headlining act at your local improv. He said, "What up, my man? My name is Jabari. You can call me Jay. I can't get you any women, but what I can promise you is that I'm going to set you up with some good food." I couldn't help but giggle at his joke, still a little loopy from the anesthesia. We'll go with that. He handed me a menu, and I ordered my meals for the next day. After he left, I listened to his voice in the next room over, where he went through the same rotation. He said, "Hey there, sweet thing. My name is Jabari, and I'm here too." And he went through his whole routine with the woman. Jabari is the kind of stranger you need when you're fragile and bandaged and have materials inside of you that belong in Home Depot. The next morning, around 10 a.m., it was time for physical therapy. I brushed aside my blankets and began turning, but feeling searing jolts across my back as if the muscles were fraying and splitting. I flopped back over and swallowed hard, sucking in a lungful of air. To reach my broken vertebrae, Dr. Chamberlain had cut through thick layers of back muscle, and so 10-4 on that reality, I was soon realizing. I turned to my left, pressed my forearm into the bed, propping myself up, the veins in my neck flexing. Then I rolled completely to the side, breathing in spastic bursts. I inched my legs off the bed, gripping the bedpost until my knuckles creaked, and slowly sat upright, like a statue pulled up by ropes. My teeth kept clicking together because I was shivering and because of the tremors. I almost missed traction therapy for the moment, getting pulled by that pulley system. A nurse rolled over a sofa-like chair on its wheels and eased me into it, taxiing me to physical therapy. The session consisted of a smiling middle-aged physical therapist placing a walker in front of my chair and me straining to get out of my seat. My arms quivered and my back felt like it had grappling hooks cinched in them, their prongs ripping behind. But I got up, and the physical therapist lingered behind me as I pushed the walker forward, legs tottering. I shuffled the long expanse of the room, which is about the size of a school cafeteria. Every step sent scalding vibrations up my leg and into my back, although I teetered back to the chair. Physical therapy completed. A little bit hurting, but contented. Whenever you find yourself in a war of attrition, you'll take the walker over the surgery table. The rest of the days that week were filled with the usual. Nurses taking vital signs and blood work, completing twice daily physical therapy sessions, wobbling and trying not to wipe out for everyone's viewing pleasure. Visits from Dr. Chamberlain, family and friends, and twitching like a coke addict with withdrawal because of the pain spasms. A puking incident into a hospital cup alone at night because I couldn't stomach the pain pills. And the most sublime, watching the Pittsburgh Penguins win Game 7 in double overtime to reach the Stanley Cup. With hazy opioid-doused eyes, I watched Penguins winger Chris Kunitz flutter a wobbling puck into the net. Hockey's just a game, right? Not in that hospital bed, not on that night. So 1 year has passed since the surgery, and in a month, so will have 2. The scars from the surgery have faded, but they're still knotted and twisted, slashing down the middle of my back. It's the seam along which all these experiences run, the awful and the relief alike. I found that untold heroes light the way in dark corners, like the attendant who showed me a scar, like Jabari, who probably took one look at my whacked out post-op facial expressions and recognized I needed a joke and a laugh. Better days have some blood in between, but thank God you can pray to the son who was born to bleed, and he suffered a whole lot more than an incision or 2. So admittedly, I still feel the broiling in my feet more often than not, but what I no longer have is a displaced vertebrae crushing those nerves. My back still aches a lot too, especially when I jog, but it doesn't quite ache quite like before because I'm whole again, anatomy-wise. All that remains is to deal with the leftovers, the deformed remnants that still cried around the formerly affected areas. So the miracle has to be on its way someday soon. It's gotta be. The miracle when these smoldering nerves in each foot and this rusted door hinge of a back find their intended serenity. It's in the movement of moments, redeeming the time when prayer recedes those dark corners into fair winds and steady seas. And now that I'm able to run again, that's what I hope for after each mile, a quiet body. No more outstanding debts physically, no charbroiled nerves, no creaking back, just firm, stable footsteps. And that's the story I'm left believing in, that you endure the war in front of you, no matter how unexceptional. It's just a matter of some heavenly assistance alongside some resolve, the resolve that grows from scars. And that's it.